So we set out to find out what fears people have when they plan their travel. We were really interested in their thinking and their hopes for if they even plan to travel. So what was the best way to do that? Talk to people. So we did.
We traveled all over Copenhagen. Hostels, hotels, walking tours, and even the airport to figure out people's fears they have when coming to visit a new country. We had them walk us through their activities from planning to actually being on the trip and how they sort of found that information.
One thing we kept hearing in our research was that finding things to do in Copenhagen was difficult. Even though Copenhagen has a vast visitor center, information wasn't being used.
It wasn't just about finding information, because that information does actually exist online. It was more about, for a traveler, they don't really have access to that information because they don't have Wi-Fi in the city. We actually came across a really interesting story when we were doing our research from a guy who basically quoted that he wanted to meet a local and be invited to their backyard. To him, that meant that he had formed a really trustworthy relationship with that person and he could experience the city from a different side. And that's really where things started to click for us.
We took the idea of backyards to heart and thought about how can we take the wealth of information from the Copenhagen Visitor Center and add a local spin on it.
So we took the idea of a more local spin on touristic information and we prototyped an information kiosk with information about things to do in Copenhagen, but also with the feature that allows tourists to connect directly with locals and meet them in person for advice.
So we got out the cardboard and paper and we started building our prototype, and we took this scrappy looking thing to the local metro station to find out what kind of results we would get.
So we had Layla being the attention grabbing screen, I was the interface, and Alessandra was pulling people from the crowd to view our experience. We did this for a few hours, and from our learnings we changed on the fly, and we got to some really interesting conclusions.
We learned a lot about what information tourists are looking for from locals, but we learned even more about how locals would like to be involved in this process. Actually, we found out that nobody wants just an information, a kiosk version of the visitor center. What they want is a real connection.
Backyard is just that. It connects locals and tourists instantly and allows tourists to ask questions through a series of network devices throughout the city.
We've all been there, right? You arrive at a new city, no internet connection, and all you want to do is find a place to eat that isn't expensive and doesn't have a bunch of tourists. This is where Backyard comes in. You can contact a local through one of the kiosks from around the city and ask them for recommendations near you. You can send them a message, video chat with them, or even ask them to meet you in person for recommendations.
Backyard.
Connecting tourists
To locals instantly.